Inside Stories Podcast.
Welcome back to Inside Stories Podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Nora.
Here, we explore power, money, and the minds behind the world's biggest stories.
When most of us think about Steven Spielberg, our minds immediately go to the spectacle.
Oh, absolutely. The big screen moments.
Right, like seeing a dinosaur for the very first time in Jurassic Park, or that feeling of pure wonder with E.T. We think about the creative genius, the direction. I mean, the way he basically defined the modern movie.
But there's a whole other story running in parallel, isn't there? A deep underlying current that is, frankly, maybe even more fascinating. And that's the story of the money.
Yes, the financial architecture, as you call it.
It's exactly that. We're not just here to celebrate his directing, which, like you said, is just undeniable. We're here to analyze him as the master strategist, the architect who built a $7 billion fortune.
That $7 billion fortune.
And the key insight, really, from all the sources is that this staggering generational wealth, it didn't primarily come from the first big hit, the initial success of a film like Jaws.
No.
It came from an extraordinarily brilliant long-term strategy, one that's centered on ownership and recurring revenue.
Okay, so let's unpack that financial blueprint. Our mission for this deep dive is to break down the specific, actionable strategies Spielberg used to turn incredible creative output into, recurring, massive, compounding wealth.
Right.
How does a genuinely creative, obsessed kid go from, sneaking onto a movie lot to becoming maybe the most financially successful business strategist in Hollywood history?
It's the ultimate merger of art and commerce. And the journey shows that this financial skill, it wasn't inherited. It wasn't something he learned in film school. It was forged through relentless persistence and an almost immediate understanding of leverage.
So often we fall into this trap,
Yeah.
right? We assume that people who achieve this kind of monumental success, they must have had some huge head start.
Wealthy patrons, family connections.
Exactly. Massive capital behind them from day one.
Yeah.
But our sources, they really challenge that idea right out of the gate when it comes to Spielberg.
They absolutely do. And the foundation of his story is so important because it shows the path was built on intellectual property, not inherited wealth.
Okay, so what was his family background?
His family was, comfortable. His father was an electrical engineer working on some of the earliest computers. His mother was a concert pianist.
So middle class.
Educated.
Exactly. Supportive, but they were certainly not people who could, bankroll major filmmaking ambitions or buy their son's way into the studio system.
And that distinction is so crucial for anyone listening. The fortune, the $7 billion, it started with creativity and persistence over immediate capital. We see the polished result, and we just forget the messy start.
The mess is the lesson. When he was a boy, he wasn't waiting for the perfect Aeroflex camera or a huge budget.
No.
He was out in Phoenix, Arizona, making these little 8mm movies with his Boy Scout troop. There are these famous, early, unpolished examples, like scenes where he literally directed two model trains to crash into each other just to get that perfect miniature disaster on film.
So what's the financial takeaway from that? Focusing on that early, that obsession. It just drives home the first major insight. Fortunes rarely start fully formed or perfectly funded. They start with an idea, with relentless persistence, and a total disregard for needing official permission or a big initial investment. He learned the mechanics of storytelling, pacing, editing, lighting, just by doing it.
He forced output.
And that obsession eventually became an undeniable product.
That same persistence then leads directly to a moment that, honestly, could have sent his career in a totally different direction. I'm talking about the famous rejection.
The rejection from USC Film School. And not just once, but twice, right after high school. It's almost ironic now, isn't it?
It's incredible.
The institution that defines so much of the industry turning away its future tightener, it's the ultimate moment of what most people would see as failure.
But instead of seeing it as a failure, he turns that rejection into fuel. Fuel for this audacious, self-directed education, the sources detailing his response. It required some truly incredible nerve.
I mean, he basically developed a sophisticated personal hacking strategy.
Hacking into Universal Studios.
Pretty much. He got a job nearby, found a map of the Universal lot, and just started showing up consistently. He'd wear a suit and carry a briefcase, so he looked like he belonged. He used this projection of competence to bypass security, and eventually he snuck onto the lot and set up a makeshift office in an unused bungalow for months.
Okay, hold on. Let's pause there. He didn't just walk on once. He was successfully maintaining a secret, like a quasi-employee life on the Universal lots.
For several months, yeah. It just speaks volumes about his commitment to learning the industry's inner workings.
That's unbelievable.
Absolutely. He replaced the formal, structured education he was denied with the most intense, immediate, on-the-job training you could imagine. He would spend his days just watching directors, editors, producers at work, absorbing the reality of the business, not the theory you'd get in a classroom.
He understood that you needed to be close to the process.
Proximity to power and process, not just credentials.
And this self-taught approach eventually leads to the short film Firelight, which becomes the proof of concept for his entire financial strategy.
That's right. Firelight wasn't just another home movie. He screened it at a local movie theater. And critically, he charged admission, $0.25 per ticket.
And he made a profit.
He made a profit of about $100. Now, $100 isn't life-changing, but the significance is in the principle.
It wasn't about the amount of money. It was about the mechanism.
Precisely. That early realization. Audiences will pay to see good stories, and I can create stories that compel them to open their wallets. This tiny experience formed the absolute bedrock of his business philosophy.
Create undeniable demand.
Create undeniable, widespread demand. The profit, no matter how small, was measurable, consumer-driven evidence that he had a commercially viable product.
So the foundation of this multi-billion-dollar empire wasn't some creative epiphany about the perfect camera shot. It was a financial realization that storytelling could generate consumer capital on demand.
Yes. He learned that if you create something so desirable that lines form around the block, the traditional barriers to entry, the budget constraints, the rejections, they all start to crumble. And that foundational business idea, creating that demand, is what gave him the leverage to negotiate everything that came next.
That transition from sneaking onto a lot and making $100 to, redefining Hollywood. It's just massive. And it all pivots around 1975 with Jaws. And that's so often celebrated as this directing achievement. But we need to focus on its role as a financial earthquake.
It was a revolution, and a largely accidental one, as the sources show. The production story is crucial because it gives context to the negotiation. That film was an unmitigated disaster in the making.
A total mess.
A total mess. They were filming on the ocean, battling weather, going massively over budget, and the mechanical shark, Bruce, it just constantly malfunctioned. It wouldn't swim, it would sink. The studio, Universal, was convinced they had a $12 million write-off on their hands.
And that atmosphere of chaos, of impending doom, is actually what set up the financial success, isn't it? The problems forced him to suggest the threat rather than always show it, which built this incredible suspense.
Artistically, yes, it forced genius. Financially, the impact was epical. Jaws became the first film to gross over $100 million domestically. And it wasn't just a hit. It created the entire concept of the summer blockbuster.
Let's explain why that calendar placement was so revolutionary. I mean, today, summer is the movie season.
Right, but before 1975, the big, serious, anticipated movies, they were released in the fall and winter for award season. Summer was considered a dumping ground.
For experiments, genre pictures.
Or lower-tier releases, yeah, because studios just assumed audiences were at the beach or enjoying the outdoors, not sitting in an air-conditioned theater. Jaws proved that with a high-concept idea, intensive marketing, and a wide initial release, you could drive mass audiences into theaters during those hot months.
It immediately changed the entire distribution infrastructure of Hollywood. Suddenly, summer became the prime real estate, and every studio just scrambled to duplicate the formula.
Exactly. So Spielberg not only had a massive hit, he created a new, hyper-lucrative financial season for the whole industry.
And that success gave him incredible immediate leverage. But here's the critical pivot point, right? Where we shift from creative success to financial genius. It's the compensation structure.
Most people, even industry insiders, they got paid a director's fee. A paycheck.
So he received a respectable fee for Jaws, maybe a few $100,000, which was excellent for a young director at the time.
But where did the true long-term wealth come from?
The true wealth source was the negotiation he forced, the back-end deal. This is the difference between a high wage and actual ownership. He said, yes, I'll take the fee, but I also want a percentage of the actual profits.
We need to dive deep into what actual profit meant back in 1975, because this is where the famous or infamous idea of Hollywood accounting comes into play. This is so crucial for understanding the genius of his deal. There are basically two types of back-end deals: gross participation and net participation. Most people were offered net.
Which means?
A cut of the profits after the studio deducts every imaginable expense. Production costs, marketing, distribution fees, interest, overhead. Historically, studios are masters at making sure the net profit on paper is always zero, even if the movie is a massive hit.
Right, you see headlines all the time about these massive films that have somehow never technically turned a net profit.
Exactly. So for a young director coming off a chaotic, over-budget production like Jaws, Universal would have pushed hard for a low director's fee and maybe a tiny slice of the net. But Spielberg, seeing that early box office demand, he likely negotiated a piece of the gross participation.
So a slice of the revenue stream before all the studio's overhead and infamous accounting tricks could be applied.
That's it, a piece of the money coming right in the door.
How much resistance would he have faced with that? I mean, giving a director a percentage of the gross, that was almost unheard of for a relatively inexperienced director in the mid-'70s.
Oh, massive resistance. It required his agents to push incredibly hard, leveraging the undeniable demand he'd created. But because Jaws became a runaway hit, a monumental success on a global scale, that percentage stake in the gross participation immediately started compounding. It was immediate, permanent cash flow based on revenue, not subject to the studio claiming zero profit.
So if we look at the financial lesson, he secured his fixed salary.
Yeah.
But then he used the leverage of his undeniable product, the demand, to demand a stake in the long-term success.
Yeah.
Fundamentally stepping off the financial treadmill.
He exchanged temporary income for recurring asset ownership. That percentage stake paid him from every single theatrical run, every television syndication deal, every VHS sale, every international distribution right.
It's the difference between being paid once for building the engine.
And then being paid a percentage of the revenue every single time the engine runs, forever. That shift is the foundation of his immense sustainable wealth.
The back-end deal on Jaws was revolutionary, but it was really just the beginning. So now, let's fast forward nearly 2 decades to 1983. We get to Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
The film grosses over $1 billion worldwide, securing his director's fee and his usual, substantial profit percentage. But what makes this film stand out in the financial history books is the singular genius move he made in the negotiation.
This is where Spielberg truly separated himself from nearly every director who came before or after him. He'd already mastered getting a piece of the film's profits. Now he turned his attention to the intellectual property ecosystem around the film.
Okay, here's the gold nugget we need to extract for everyone listening. He negotiated a piece of the theme park royalties. What was the context for this demand? Why would Universal even agree to give up a piece of their non-film revenue?
Well, Universal at the time was still focused primarily on film and theatrical profits. The theme park division, while it was significant, it wasn't the crown jewel it is today. And the concept of sharing revenue from rides and hotels and gift shop sales with the director was unconventional, to say the least.
So he had to sell them on the idea.
Spielberg and his team essentially had to convince the studio heads that the Jurassic Park IP was so inherently powerful, so scalable, and so perpetual that its value extended far beyond the cinema.
The foresight there is just incredible. I mean, a movie's run, however successful, it eventually ends. A theme park attraction based on a global, endlessly appealing franchise like dinosaurs. That's potentially perpetual.
That is the entire point. The sources describe the scope of this recurring income stream as astonishingly broad. Spielberg gets a legally contracted cut from every single ticket sold for a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World ride at Universal Parks worldwide.
Every single ticket.
Every ticket. He gets a cut of related merchandise sold within the park and, according to some reports, a piece of the ancillary revenue, like hotel packages that are tied to the attraction.
So this isn't just passive income. This is recurring, forever money derived from a physically manifested, continuous machine that's based on his original creative product.
It's the ultimate leverage of IP. He made the creative product once in 1993, and now for 3 decades and counting, the physical structure of the park, the attraction, the gift shop, the food vendors, is generating revenue based on his original design and storytelling. That income stream potentially generates millions of dollars every single year, indefinitely.
Let's clearly define intellectual property, or IP, here. How does this differ from just owning a percentage of the movie's box office?
Right. So IP is the legal right to the creative concepts, the characters, the names, the stories, the logos. Universal owns the movie itself, the physical asset. But Spielberg owns a legally contracted percentage of the economic exploitation rights derived from that IP.
Think of it like a perpetual lease on the economic engine of the franchise.
That's a great way to put it. And it illustrates the long-term payoff. IP is patient money.
Patient money. I like that.
It is. It doesn't rush. It waits, and it continues to grow. Decades later, when the studio releases a sequel like Jurassic World, he gets paid for the movie profits, yes. But more importantly, when a new Jurassic World ride opens in Beijing, he gets paid.
Right.
When a streaming service buys the global rights to the franchise catalog, he gets paid. When a little toy dinosaur is sold in a Universal gift shop in Osaka, Japan, that transaction contains a fractional payment directed right back to his asset pool.
So the revenue stream operates completely independent of his time, of his direct involvement in new projects, or even his presence in the world.
And that is the ultimate goal of wealth creation for any entrepreneur or creative. You create an asset pool that generates income while you sleep. That $7 billion valuation rests so heavily on this perpetual stream of royalties from IP, merchandise, and theme parks. He learned how to monetize creativity not just once, but perpetually across multiple mediums, all at the same time.
After orchestrating Jaws and Jurassic Park, two of the biggest financial coups in Hollywood history, he had more than enough capital to just retire.
Oh, easily.
But the sources note he didn't slow down. He kept building franchises like E.T., Indiana Jones, later more serious films.
Yeah.
This persistence wasn't just artistic drive, was it? It was a business strategy.
It signaled a complete shift in his identity. He stopped thinking solely like a director. The artist focused on the 2 hours of the movie and started thinking like a producer and a businessman focused on the entire ecosystem.
Right, the whole world around the film.
He understood that the real compounding money wasn't just in the ticket sales, but in the sequels, the theme park potential, the global merchandising, and all the long-tail revenue that flowed from that core creative idea.
So he formalized this shift by expanding his role dramatically into Spielberg, the producer.
Yeah.
How did this multiply his income streams beyond just what he could earn from his own directed projects?
This is the diversification phase. A director can earn a percentage of, 1 or 2 films a year at best. A producer can have oversight on dozens of projects at the same time. They often take a reduced fee but secure a percentage of the profits across a much wider portfolio. His production company, Amblin Entertainment, became the engine for this.
Can you give us some concrete examples of how this diversification fed that $7 billion fortune?
Certainly. Through Amblin, he produced countless films directed by others, from comedies like Gremlins to dramas and even television series. Later, he co-founded DreamWorks SKG, which was a massive strategic move.
Right, with Katzenberg and Geffen.
Exactly. And while DreamWorks went through various corporate changes and sales, his initial stake in the company, which housed all this lucrative animation IP, delivered colossal returns when it was eventually acquired.
So his income sources just broadened dramatically. We're moving from a single large stream, from his own directorial hits to this complex web of revenue channels.
We can list them out. You have directing fees and residuals. You have producing fees and percentages from other people's films and TV shows. You have merchandise royalties from his core IP. You have streaming and VOD licensing for his entire back catalog, the recurring theme park income, and then the capital gains from strategic business ventures like DreamWorks.
The metaphor from the source material is perfect.
Yeah.
It's not one massive pile of money.
No, it's like 100 piles of money, all continuously flowing in, providing a stability that no single fixed salary could ever hope to replicate.
Okay, now we absolutely have to talk about Schindler's List, which also came out in 1993, the same year as Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
This film is often cited as his greatest artistic achievement, a necessary, painful story about the Holocaust. From the outside, it looks completely divorced from the financial strategy we've been talking about.
And that is exactly why this piece of the analysis is so critical for the listener. It reveals the strategic value of reputation capital. Schindler's List was not made to generate merchandise or theme park rides.
Of course not.
He famously and genuinely waived his own salary for the film, directing the proceeds back to establish the survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation.
So if he waived his fee and it generated no theme park revenue, how is this film strategically beneficial to the overall financial empire?
Because the film was critically acclaimed. It won Best Picture and multiple major Oscars. This achievement fundamentally and permanently elevated Spielberg's public and professional reputation. He transitioned from being merely the blockbuster guy, the brilliant popcorn filmmaker,
To a serious filmmaker.
to being recognized as a serious filmmaker with profound cultural depth and authority.
So his artistic choice, which was made with genuine conviction, resulted in an immediate, tangible increase in his personal brand value and his leverage.
Precisely. That enhanced credibility and cultural authority were priceless. When he returned to the negotiating table for his next commercial blockbuster, say The Lost World or Saving Private Ryan, the studios viewed him differently.
They trusted him more.
They trusted him with larger budgets because he had proven he could deliver prestige. Top actors and crews were eager to work with him as a producer, knowing his name added weight and gravity. His power to demand favorable back-end deals and IP control increased exponentially.
It's the ultimate example of layered reputation building. His prestige made his commercial ventures even more profitable.
It's leverage perfected. He proved he was capable in multiple, seemingly contradictory ways: mass market commerce and serious, difficult art. This dual mastery makes you an indispensable, multifaceted resource. It increases your trustworthiness and, consequently, your negotiating power in every single deal that follows. He effectively capitalized on prestige.
Okay, this is the section where we crystallize all of this into actionable takeaways. The person listening may not be building a $7 billion empire, but these principles apply regardless of your field, whether you're an artist, a consultant, or a startup founder. So what is the foundational lesson we take from his earliest days?
Lesson 1. Start before you're ready. We reviewed the evidence. Making films with rudimentary equipment as a kid. Sneaking onto the Universal lot after being rejected by USC. He never waited for the perfect credential, the perfect setup, or for official permission. He forced his way in through sheer, undeniable output.
The paralysis of perfectionism is so real. We often wait for the right software, the perfect degree, or the ideal market conditions. But Spielberg's story tells us that momentum and real-world learning, gained from just starting, far outweigh the value of waiting for perfect preparation.
He built his knowledge base by acting first. That's the entire lesson, which leads into lesson 2, which is about the crucial separation between the technical craft and the financial infrastructure around it. Lesson 2, understand the business around your craft.
This is such a hurdle for so many creatives and technicians. They become world-class directors or writers or engineers or software developers. But they often treat the business side, the negotiation, the distribution, the profit, as something, unpleasant or secondary.
And that is where the value leakage happens. Spielberg clearly understood that his film wasn't just an artistic artifact. It was a scalable product that generates multiple distinct revenue channels. He was a master of directing, yes, but he was also a master of the contractual structures that governed where the money went once the directing was done.
You can be the most brilliant director in the world, but if you accept a fixed fee and zero backend, you have willingly given away your future wealth-generating potential. You have to know the architecture of the revenue channels, merchandise, IP, theme parks, distribution to successfully claim a stake in them.
Exactly. You have to know how the machine operates, not just how to input the beautiful artifact. And that brings us to the deepest financial lesson, lesson 3. Think in percentages, not paychecks.
This is the core difference between temporary cash flow and long-term asset building. A paycheck, however large it is a single transaction that ends when the work is done. A percentage is an ownership stake in a perpetual asset.
When you negotiate a paycheck, you are optimizing for today. When you negotiate a percentage of IP revenue, you are optimizing for the next 5 decades. We saw this with Jaws and his demand for gross participation to avoid those Hollywood accounting tricks. We saw it perfected with Jurassic Park and the theme park royalties.
And the provocative detail here, which we mentioned earlier, is the compounding nature of it. Those percentages from films made 3 decades ago. They're substantial enough that they are paying his direct descendants today and will continue to pay them well into the future. It's generational wealth built on IP.
But this forces every professional to question their current negotiation strategy. Are you accepting the comfortable single lump sum, or are you fighting for the difficult-to-secure percentage stake that creates recurring asset-based income? Are you trading time for money, or are you trading creativity for ownership? That distinction is the engine of his entire fortune.
And finally, lesson 4. Build a layered reputation. We saw how the prestige from Schindler's List directly fueled the leverage for his future commercial deals.
It's strategic reputation architecture. He intentionally diversified his output to prove he was capable of mastering both art, the meticulous, necessary, serious drama and commerce, the scalable, universally appealing blockbuster.
If you're known for only one narrow skill set, your negotiating power is inherently limited. But if you can prove your competence across layered domains, if you are seen as someone who can deliver artistic excellence and massive commercial returns, your value to any organization multiplies. You become an indispensable resource, trusted with the largest budgets and the most complex projects.
And that trust translates directly into greater financial control.
So let's synthesize the Spielberg formula into the most powerful takeaway you can carry with you today. It's not about luck, and, while genius certainly helps, it's fundamentally about strategic thinking.
The central idea that underpins the entire $7 billion empire is this. Sustainable, massive wealth is not built by trading your time for money. Your time has a fixed ceiling.
Wealth, instead, is built by creating something, a film, an asset, a proprietary system, a piece of intellectual property that generates revenue independent of your ongoing input.
The theme park rides generate ticket sales while Spielberg is directing another film or taking vacation or sleeping. The IP catalog generates licensing fees decades after the camera stopped rolling. He created the asset, he negotiated ownership of the asset's long-tail revenue streams, and then he let those assets work for him perpetually.
And that is the ultimate shift in financial thinking we want you to consider. The question isn't how hard can you work next week for the next paycheck, it's what system or asset can you build today? What percentage can you demand that will be generating money for you in 5 or 10 years? Shifting your focus entirely from building for today to building for tomorrow.
Because the difference between that single paycheck and that compounding recurring percentage is not just the difference between making a living and making a fortune. It's the difference between a temporary career and generational wealth.
If this video got you thinking, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. And drop a comment.
See you in the next story.